Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be another member kind of inspired video. So Valerie, this one goes out to you. We are going to do a Gothic bride. So the first thing I did was I'm using Let's Resin's resin today, and we're going to play with a couple different molds. So we're going to use the large skull mold, and I'm just mixing up, I just mixed up a little bit of the Rolio lilac mica powder in with this. Kind of going to do it, since it's a deeper mold, I'm going to do this in 3 pours. Now it is the Let's Resin along with a little bit of their interference powder and purple, just a little bit, just kind of for that purpley sheen to kind of go with it. I don't want to go too much purple. Like I want it to be see-through clear, you know, but I just wanted to have that kind of hint of purple. Now I am also using Into Resin's Lotus mold for this, because I kind of think this will be like the perfect addition to this piece once it's done. Like I've got an idea in my head, but we're going to see how it plays out. But I do want to kind of incorporate this. Now I do have a 20% off discount for you guys. The code will be in the description box, along with all the links and everything that I normally post in there to everything that I'm using. All right, so I am taking my time and I am working out the bubbles in this. Now, if I get some bubbles, like I could work it out so that I don't get any. I'm honestly kind of want a couple, and I know that's really weird to say, but I do, just because of the way that this piece is going to be. I kind of almost want, I don't want a lot, obviously, like I don't want it to completely like ruin the flower, but I do want a couple in there because of the type of piece that this is. I think it will kind of add a little bit to the piece in a whole, if it makes sense. Like, we're going Gothic, we're going, you know, skulls and all of that. So if the flower doesn't come out perfect, I'm good with it, if that makes sense. All right, so those mosaic shells that I used that were dyed in the turtle mold a couple videos back, the turtle piece, I'm actually going to use them in this as well. And I'm just kind of mixing them in my resin, and I want a layer that's kind of going to go primarily the face, like up through the teeth on this piece. Just for the little bit of color, just for that kind of, it almost gives it that kind of Day of the Dead look too. Just the colorfulness and whatever. Like, we're not going Day of the Dead with this piece, but it kind of sort of mm, is a loose interpretation, or could be a loose interpretation of it, if that makes sense. But that's not necessarily what exactly I'm going to for. But I am going to fill this up. Now, I don't want a clear layer of resin like to come out of this, so I am kind of, as I'm working these pieces of shell in, I'm adding more and more shell until I have it completely covered, and I don't have to worry about there being a bunch of resin on the top. I am going to kind of go around a little bit and spray it with alcohol to kind of prevent any bubbles. Hopefully add a little bit more, because as I'm kind of working with it, I can see the resin kind of like starting to settle, and I still have a bunch on top. So I'm just going to kind of shove some more in there, move them around, make sure that they're completely covered and coated, and hopefully I'm not going to get a crap ton of air bubbles in this because of the way that I'm doing it, but I guess that's kind of, you know, a chance that you take. And then we're just going to let that dry. All right, so here is our flower. Now, this one honestly turned out a little too perfect, but it's fine. And I had every intention on using it, but I molded it too soon. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit when I actually start to work with it. But right now, we're going to do this very last layer of resin, and I'm just going in with that same lilac mica powder again. We're going to fill this up the rest of the way, let it cure, do its thing, and then come back and start assembling this piece. Okay, so as far as the flower goes, what my intention is And I just sprayed a little bit of alcohol because I'm hoping to kind of alleviate any bubbles between the layers. It can sometimes happen. And into that piece, like around the skull where I'm going with my silicone tool right now, I don't want the bubbles there. So I'm hoping that the alcohol will kind of help pop any bubbles as they come up. Okay, we're going to finish filling this and let this last layer cure. Now, as I'm going through doing this, let's talk about this lotus mold again. All right, so we're going Gothic bride, right? So I want, after I demold this, I want to have a veil on this piece. Like, I think that would be pretty cool. This is 24 hours later. We're just going to go ahead and pop this baby out and see what we got. Now, I was going to use the first flower that I cast, but you know how when you first demold your resin, if you demold it on the earlier side of things, it's still kind of pliable. You can bend it a little bit. I'm not talking like super bendy, but you can it's pliable enough that you can kind of shape it a little bit if you need to. Well, I kind of need to for this. I don't want it like the bottom of the flower is flat, and that's fine, but not for this particular piece because I need it kind of curved to the skull. I want it as part of my veil. And in order to do that, I need a piece that is still bendy. And by the time this last layer of resin cured and I got to it, that first flower, which I kind of painted with my Dragon's Glaze paint, it was too hard and I couldn't move it. So I did have to cast another one so that it was pliable, and I did a better job at getting bubbles, which I know sounds ridiculous. In our world, it's try not to get the bubbles, but in this piece I really did want the bubbles because, it's a skull. Like, it just seems like it shouldn't be perfect. Now, I am going over the teeth with this dragon glaze. It's not going to do a lot. It's a very subtle difference, but it's going to give it a kind of like a subtle shimmer that when you're up close to it, like you really can't tell now, but when you're up close to it, it's just going to do a little bit, just give it a little bit more detail. Okay, now for the veil. So I just cut off a piece of lace, and I'm kind of conforming it to how I want it to sit on the head. Now, I realize that this first part, it kind of it kind of looks like a do-rag, but I'm hoping that once I add that kind of like second part of the veil and the flower and some other, embellishments, that it looks a little less do-raggy and a little more like a veil. We'll see. All right, so I got the first part down. Now, to kind of hide that harsh edge of the ribbon, or I mean of the lace, I'm going to go ahead with just a piece of satin ribbon, and I'm kind of going to go just alongside and hot glue that on, and then trim it down to size. I went ahead and cut it extra long, and that's not a big huge deal. I just want to be able to work with it and get it glued down where I need it, and then I can just snip off the excess. After I did this, I kind of played around with another piece of lace and kind of folded it up, made it a little bit shorter than the first piece, bunched it up in the middle, and then we're going to hot glue it on together, and it's kind of going to be that second part of a veil, like that would go over the bride's face. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's what this piece is kind of intended to be. Um, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like without, I've never made a veil before, so I'm kind of guessing at how it's done and whatever. Now you can see my incredibly straight cutting job that I did. So we're just gonna try and trim this up a little bit, make it a little bit straighter. It doesn't need to be quite so long. I do want it to be shorter than the initial veil that I put on there. And then we need to hide this seam as well. So we're gonna do that with a little bit more ribbon, and then just add on some other kind of pretty details to it. I don't want it to be too I don't want to say too pretty. Like I want it to be pretty, but I still want it to kind of look have that gothic like look and feel to it, I guess. So yeah, so we're just kind of bunching it up, looking at how it's gonna kind of lay if once I glue it here, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm just gonna put on some hot glue, shove it down there, and then fix the edges because I'm scared that once I move it, I'm not gonna be able to figure out how I had it again. And then this one edge that's kind of long, we're just gonna kind of cut that down to size and put a little bit more ribbon over top of that hard edge of the lace. And then we're going to go in here with some rhinestones and this flower and get everything all pretty and see what it looks like. Like it's a pretty simple project all in all. Like I feel like there was more it was harder work, like the thought process of how to make it all come together than actually doing it. And at one point, I had thought about because I have some black lace too, and I had thought about kind of going the black route, but then I didn't want it to be like too dark. And I thought that maybe the black I don't think would go as well. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But I kind of wanted to do like the traditional white, I guess. And I just thought that it would look prettier with the colors I chose than the black. All right, so now I have these little rhinestones that are kind of like they're all strung together and they have an adhesive on the back of them. So I'm just going to use these for this and I'm kind of going to put it on that first part of the ribbon that I put down. Not the second part, just the first. And I'm just going to kind of push it in place and then cut it off where it comes and meets the ribbon on the other side. And that's it. Like it's super simple. And at this point, after I'm done doing this, this is when I realized that this first lotus isn't going to work because I can't conform it. So here is my second one that is still bendy, thank God. And I am going to do a combination of E6000 glue and some hot glue, and I'm going to kind of shove it on and hold it on forever, it seemed like, to get that E6000 glue to kind of stick. And that's it. But this way I can have it conform to the side of the skull and I don't have to worry about anything. And it looks like it's actually, a part of that veil. Now for the eyes, I decided that once again, I'm going to do the rhinestone thing. And we're just going with clear rhinestones. Now these ones have like a holographic, eh, yeah, kind of like a holographic-ish look to them. When you move them, they kind of have that color changing ability to them. And they're not like the clear ones, you know what I mean? So they do have that little bit of color that is going to bounce off of everything. And we're just going to go fill these up with that. And then that's pretty much it for this project. Like that is all I'm doing. And for the application of it, I'm just using diamond glaze for it, and then I'm going with my heat gun here and there after I apply it just to kind of help set that glue, make it a little bit more tacky. This way I don't have such a hard time with these rhinestones because it's really a pain in the butt to stick them in the eye sockets like this. They just want to keep moving around and all the glue wants to run to the back and it's a pain. But anyway, I'm just going to finish this up. That's pretty much a wrap on this one, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will see you on Thursday in the next one. Love ya. Bye.
Shivers in the night, cold and hollow sight, dance within the tomb, skeleton bright in gloom. Oh, my skeleton bride, together in the night, in the dark we reside, eternal love lies. Veil of ancient shrouds, shadows of light.